Welcome to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point. I'm Li Xin. Today, I'll dissect stories that are making headlines around the world and talk to our panel to compensate for the missing pieces of the puzzle. So join us in real time by sending us your comments or questions via the CGTN page on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Weibo. If you're watching this live on the CGTN application, email us at thepointwithlx@cgtn.com. Let me know what you think. We start our live streaming every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Beijing time. Do get in touch and we just might read out your comments. It's a beautiful day, by the way, here in the Chinese capital. And now for today's topic, the U.S. and Iran. Tensions sparked between the two when the U.S. killed Iran's most powerful military commander, General Qasem Soleimani, in a drone strike near Iraq's Baghdad International Airport. Now hailed as a hero in Iran, Soleimani was called a living martyr of the revolution by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The U.S., however, viewed him as a threat, with the Pentagon saying he and his troops were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Americans and coalition service members and the wounding of thousands more. To justify the strike, the U.S. President Donald Trump claimed Soleimani was planning attacks on U.S. forces and that the action was taken to stop a war. It's quite the opposite, in fact. After Iran's supreme leader vowed that harsh revenge awaits the criminals, Iran launched more than a dozen missiles at two Iraqi bases that hold U.S. troops. No Americans were harmed. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif said on Twitter that in response to the strike, Iran took and concluded proportionate measures in self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter, and that we do not seek escalation or war, but will defend ourselves against any aggression. Now, although President Trump said that Iran appears to be standing down in his national address, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world, the president also said, by the way, this was an address to the nation at the White House on Wednesday, the president also made plenty more threats this week. Earlier, however, he announced, for instance, that troops could be sent to, and by the way, some 3,000 more troops could be sent to the region. He also vowed to strike 52 Iranian sites if Iran takes military action that strikes any Americans or American assets, including some of cultural importance. 52, he pointed out, represents the number of U.S. hostages Iran took in the country's 1979 revolution. The Iranian nuclear deal has also taken a hit, with Iran announcing that it will forego the limit on the number of centrifuges. In other words, it won't comply with the 2015 Iran nuclear deal anymore. The Trump administration, of course, pulled the U.S. out of that agreement already in 2018. This escalation didn't just erupt overnight. Tensions have been brewing for a long time and are deeply rooted. So has the international media accounted for these complexities and different sides of the stories. The latest developments indeed bring up a lot of tough questions, and here is one. How do you define terrorism? The U.S. paints Soleimani as Iran's ruthless killer who built, funded and armed a murderous international terror network. But Iran's Foreign Minister Jawad Zarif described the U.S. airstrike as an act of international terrorism, with Iran's information minister calling President Trump a terrorist in a suit. How far must actions taken in the name of fighting terrorism go before they become acts of terrorism themselves? Or do they? Where do you draw the line? And how big a role did the U.S. play in facilitating this crisis in the first place? Is the media talking about these points fairly in its coverage? Well, keeping these questions on mind, as usual, we'll take a look at some recent media stories. There are a lot of issues to unpack in this rapidly evolving story, so we can only examine a few this week. And I'll start with the CNN, which published a story on January the 8th that highlights a crucial point: the evolving U.S. justification for killing Iran's top general. right off the bat, the article's title poses a serious question. Did the U.S. kill or assassinate Soleimani? And why does it matter? The article says when the U.S. government killing of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was first announced, officials from the Pentagon up to President Donald Trump were careful to make clear the strike was meant to head off an imminent attack on Americans. It then gives us quite the comprehensive timeline of who said what and when at the White House and how the Trump administration keeps changing its story from saying Soleimani posed an imminent threat to he should have been killed years ago and retaliation as the main reasons. I think we can all agree that the White House's justification is a bit murky at best. In fact, CNN seems to be doing our job for us, but instead of busting media headlines, they're busting the Trump administration's flimsy reasoning behind the strike. So why is the Trump administration working overtime to designate the strike as a killing instead of an assassination? Both the Iranian president and Iraq's prime minister are calling Soleimani's death assassination, along with many media platforms. Now, assassination has been illegal under U.S. law since 1981, according to the same CNN article, and could require authorization by Congress if the threat Soleimani posed was not imminent. As CNN points out, killing a terrorist as a security matter is one thing. Killing another country's general as part of a policy agenda is something else entirely. So after going through all the trouble of calling out the White House's inconsistent story with all signs suggesting Soleimani did not present an imminent threat, why is CNN still saying the U.S. killed Soleimani instead of assassinated him? Why do some media say assassinate and others say kill or eliminate? Is there a bias? Let me know what you think. Second, another angle. The Associated Press on January the 6th published the story Blowback, Iran abandons nuclear limits after U.S.'s killing. On January the 6th, the first paragraph says, the blowback over the U.S. killing of a top, by the way, note the word killing, after the U.S. killing of a top Iranian general mounted Sunday as Iran announced it will no longer abide by the limits contained in the 2015 nuclear deal, and Iran's parliament called for the expulsion of all American troops from Iraqi soil. It isn't until much farther down, around 20 paragraphs later, that the somewhat important detail emerged that, in fact, the Trump administration pulled the U.S. out of the carefully negotiated Iran deal in 2015. Already, they did it in 2018. The headline, paired with this buried piece of background information, may mislead readers who are not familiar with the bigger picture or history of U.S.-Iran relations. If the headline didn't already put you on guard over Iran's actions, the second paragraph surely will. Here the article states the double whammy of Iran neglecting the nuclear deal and Iraq's parliament calling for an expulsion of all American troops from Iraqi soil. And according to the article, this could bring Iran closer to building an atomic bomb and enable the Islamic State group to stage a comeback in Iraq, making the Middle East a far more dangerous and unstable place. Atomic bomb, Islamic State, these are scary words to so casually throw around. And quite a leap to go from A, Iran says it will no longer abide by the 2015 limits, to B, the country could build an atomic bomb and Islamic State could return to the region. And that part about Iran's announcement making Middle East a far more dangerous and unstable place, well, isn't that exactly what the U.S. is doing, especially after its strike on Soleimani? To me, the article could do a more effective job of contextualizing the importance of the Iran nuclear deal and the history behind U.S.-Iran tensions. It could even say more about how the U.S. is clearly not making the Middle East safer and more stable. Do you get the same impression? Our third article looks at, here it goes, the China position. The Wall Street Journal on January the 5th published the article, Iran lacks allies in confronting the U.S. The gist of the story is that despite the feverish talk of General Soleimani's death sparking a World War III, Iran nowadays can only count on itself and on the network of irregular Shiite militias and proxies that the Quds Force commander had nurtured in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and beyond. The Quds commander meaning Soleimani. It then goes on. The article then goes on to make the claim that while observers say Beijing and Moscow would be happy to watch the U.S. get bogged down even deeper in the Middle East, a diversion that would give them a freer hand in their own neighborhoods, they have no appetite for exposing themselves to the risks of a possible confrontation. Here, I see at least 3 problems with this paragraph, so let's break it down. First, the phrase would be happy to watch the U.S. get bogged down. This sort of remark implies that China has a twisted Schadenfreude or delight in the U.S.'s misfortune intentions escalate in the region, which is far from the case. If the Middle East sinks into turmoil, China's interests will also be severely hurt, as China is an important importer of oil from that region and an important partner, business partner to many countries in that region. So the U.S. is not stupid, neither is China, to bet on something unrealistic. Now, the second problem I have, a freer hand in their own neighborhoods, meaning China and Russia. What exactly is the article trying to say? I don't know about Russia, but this seems to imply that China is either trying to dominate the region or China is scrambling to keep things under control in its part of the world already. This is not very respectful of China's efforts to safeguard regional security, but also patronizing the other countries in the region. And finally, no appetite for exposing themselves to the risks of a possible confrontation is not a matter of appetite or risk, all right? It's a matter of respecting international law. China's position on Iran couldn't be clearer. While answering a phone call on Saturday from his counterpart, Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said the military adventurous act by the U.S. goes against basic norms governing international relations and will aggravate tensions and turbulence in the region. He added, China urges the U.S. to seek resolution through dialogue instead of abusing force. China will continue to uphold an objective and just position and play a constructive role in safeguarding peace and security in the Gulf region of the Middle East. It's looking more like a jungle out there. The U.S. may have such appetite, but don't expect everyone to want the same thing. So the situation between Iran and the U.S. is complicated and quickly changing, so we all have to be vigilant about what we read and how we read the news. We've shown you just a few examples, but let me know what you're thinking by sending us emails or comments or questions. Is the media doing a good job of covering this story? We'd love to hear your thoughts as usual. We'll take a very short break, and when we come back, I'll have 3 guests from China and Iran joining me on site right here. So do stick around. Don't go away.
No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. The United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior.
Welcome back to this edition of Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Li Xin. I'm joined on the set by Professor Li Guofu, Senior Research Fellow from the China Institute of International Studies, from Bakhshali Bayramlu, a political analyst from Iran, and Dr. Tang Zhichao, a Senior Research Fellow, Director of Politics Studies, the Institute of West Asia and African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Gentlemen, welcome to Headline Buster. So first of all, your impression of what I said. I was talking about 3 articles, mainly about the history, the context, let's say, between the dispute between the 2 sides this time, and also China's position. What are your most outstanding impression of my monologue, whether there are any particular point you want to make, Professor Li?
I think since U.S. killing, the Iranian
Soleimani,
top
yeah.
General Soleimani, there has been a debate within the United States whether, the American this kind of action is legal or not legal, whether it is within, the framework of the international law or not. There's a debate, and some of the people say it is no justification for the Americans, even though the top senior, the American officials said this. They defined this kind of action as a self-defense, and said because top general, the Soleimani is prepare or planning a new kind of attack against the United States, and this kind of threat was imminent within days. So they take a proactive, the preventive, the actions.
What's your judgment? What's your opinion?
And according to all what I have read and what I have known about, the relations between 2 countries, I think, this is very important, very bold decision made by Trump, and because before, and even during the President Bush and President Obama, they have considered this kind of option to killing, the General Soleimani, but they say maybe the consequences was too severe, too big for the Americans to sustain. So they try to avoid that. But Trump, by doing this to show that he is bold enough, and he is a man of his word. If it is necessary, he would do whatever it would be necessary to defend Americans' interests.
Yeah, well, the thing is whether it is legitimate, whether it is legal. And here we have a comment from this person called Paolo Roberto. May I ask why so many euphemisms when the U.S. does barbaric thing? Any other nation or people who did what the U.S. did would be immediately called terrorist. Ali, your comment or your answer?
I think the United States is a big problem. They killed the Soleimani. All the Iranian people, they like it so much, the Soleimani. Soleimani is, you can say, Iran's the one of the brave soldier. And all this, the other country, for example, in the Iraq, in the Lebanon, the Philistine, they know the Soleimani. And that the general gave me a good point and good affection for me, and that the same of the Soleimani, if some country has the problem is attack my country, we have same of the Soleimani, they have defended my country. So I think we want to continue and defend our country. If they killed Soleimani, we didn't stop it and then show the United States everything they wanted to do in the Middle East. Middle East is, we can say, it's a whole town. This is our country. So that Middle East is our country. We live it in the Middle East. But the United States is not here. Just come here and just maybe the cheating and every problem and for example, in the Syria and the Iraq and Afghanistan, we know every problem to make it the United States.
All right, Professor Dr. Tang, your take.
Yeah.
Several questions already. Where you start?
I believe, I agree with what Americans has done. Obviously violated international law. That's why so Iraq people, Iraq government, Iraq parliament members so angry. You strike at the country. The second, I think Soleimani general was not a terrorist. Just the United States said he is a terrorist. United States always has a very political sized terrorist list. Everybody knows. You know, at the past 4 or 5 years, actually, United States and Soleimani general worked together in Iraq and Syria to counter ISIS. But after defeated ISIS, now United States said Soleimani was a terrorist. I should kill you. So it's ridiculous.
Because Soleimani is never, this big question of how do you define a terrorist. There is this UN kind of list of terrorist organizations, and there is this rumor that Soleimani was also on some kind of a terrorist list, which is not true, right? I understand that he was only listed as a target for sanctions by the United States, but never listed officially as a terrorist. So is there anything behind this choice of words, killing or assassination? Because when it is assassination, it is illegitimate, right? But if you say it's killing, then it's probably okay, because killing is a much general term. Professor Lee.
I think this is a big difference. The first, I think it is the attitudes of the person who used this word, and it's very interesting. For example, President Trump used the word terminate, and which means to remove this physically. And then, as I said, assassination means by provoking you try to kill people. To some legal sense, it is illegal, and the killing is more vague.
Yeah.
And there's no political meaning or good or bad. It reflect the real kind of a status. These people has been killed. So,
but was this an assassination?
I think yes, definitely. As Mr. Tang has already said that actually Soleimani was on a diplomatic mission. He was invited by the Prime Minister of Iraq to respond to what the Iranians are going to do or take a kind of policies in order to reconcile its relations or improve the relations between Saudi and the Iranian. So the Prime Minister of Iraq said, I'm the first guest of Soleimani when he visited Iraq. He actually, as a matter of fact, invited by the Iraqi government. So, American and collect kind of information, then they believe this may be a good opportunities to kill him or to assassinate him.
We have a different opinion here on Facebook by Sunday Ifedili Stefan. I so much love the work you people are doing, but I must commend the brave U.S. military intelligence on bringing down this terrorist who has been under security watch for so long. How do you understand the sentiment of people who actually agree with the United States, believing that Iran is kind of a threat to the security or stability in that region, and of course then Iranian general is doing bad things? Dr.
Ali, yeah.
Ali, would you like to say something to such comments? I'm sure this is not the only one who thinks this way.
But actually, just so I know, the United States, the Islam country, they have a political problem. They make it that country is a terrorist. Now I know it's the other countries, for example, in Chinese. That's a problem as about the international ship or politics make it that the Chinese government is a terrorist. If I say that the other country make it, for example, North Korean, maybe I didn't remember maybe a good relationship with United States. If have a problem, make it a terrorism that country and sanction, and so that's. This times we cannot leave it and good relationship in the world. So I want to make it a new unite the other country and resolve this problem. And
I think we have to say in the last couple of decades there has been many wars, military confrontations. And the results of these, the violence, whatever we call the wars, military confrontations, the people suffered most because those people, whatever the countries would send their sons, their husbands, their fathers, all their lovers too. They have been ordered by various governments, and as they aim to win over the war. But you have to think about the other side. The other side is the same, some of the armies, some of these fighters, they are defending their homeland. They also lost more than, those people sending, the troops to the region. But for whatever reasons, by the end, all the people, is not those people send, their armies to the region to fight lost life. Usually, they are ordinary people.
So what is the...
So I think the best, I'm very sorry. I feel very brave about, whoever suffered or died over the kind of divisive war. The best, if we pray for peace, make our efforts to end the war, there will be, if there's no war, there will be much less of the death and loss of beloved ones.
So basically,
for everyone.
People should try and work to use political ways to solve problems, to de-escalate the situation instead of to plant the seeds for further hatred or retaliation. Is that, Dr. Tang, what is your reaction?
I just the friend Stephen said it's he said it's he commanded the United States military intelligence his work. He said I agree the United States and Israel actually know more about General Soleimani actually for a long time. If they want to kill him, I think they can do it before, maybe the day before. In Syria, in Iraq, they can do it. But why now? It's about politics. From Washington, Washington people, they have a political thinking about new situation. That is for Trump. Actually, it's Trump's thinking. For my understanding, Trump's Middle East strategy has inherent contradictions with the Iran policy.
Okay.
Generally, he wanted to move or retreat from this area, but his Iran's policy will pull her back into Israel.
All right, so it's quite a split thing there. All right, from MD Human Kabir, Iraq should not be made a battlefield and all kinds of foreign troops should vacate the Middle East. Yeah, we haven't said so much about Iraq. What is Iraq's role here, or what has Iraq become because of the conflict?
And there is a saying, two big elephants.
Two big elephants.
Fight or even making the love. The grassroots suffered the most. It seems, the Iraq is the grassroots, and two big, the elephants are fighting in Iraq, and because the reason for that is obvious, very clear. It has a long history, but the Americans stay in Iraq, and Iraq is Iranian neighbor. And America wants to use Iraq to watch whatever the Iranian was doing.
So what fundamentally led to Iraq being in such an unfortunate place?
It started with the 9/11, when American launched, the anti-terror war in the Middle East. American invaded. So the word is American invaded Iraq, and very interesting. American invasion of Iraq has been very popular, used in the West world, even in the Americans. If you see the papers, almost all the American papers will use this word. Then, after the war, American has not managed to, to make the order in Iraq. So there is violent, there is turmoil, there is instabilities in the Iraq. So those pro-Iranians are growing up.
Okay.
And the one reason is the fact that is the majority of the population of the Iraq are Shiites, which they have shared the same religious values or belief with Iran.
Yeah.
That's make these two nations much more closer, and certainly to the dislike of the United States.
All right, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Professor Li Guofu, Senior Research Fellow from the China Institute of International Studies, Bakhsh Ali Bayramlu, a political analyst from Iran, and Dr. Tang Zhichao, Senior Research Fellow, Director of Politics Studies, Institute of West Asia and African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Li Xin. I'll see you next Friday at the same time. 好，
结束了啊。